My committee visited the Tree Crop Development Authority as part of our oversight jobs. We were visiting some of the institutions, and so when we visited Tree Crop Development Authority, one of the key engagements that we had was the need to identify which are our priority tree crops that government was investing in. Cocoa has always been the name of the game. So how do we veer into these, if you like, non-traditional tree crops? And so cashew was very high on the agenda, rubber very high on the agenda, and palm nut, oil palm. Think of Malaysia. We literally do oil palm with Malaysia. We should have been apart. As you might have experienced, most of the time if you are flying into Malaysia, you see huge trucks of plantations of oil palm, and they are using it along the chain to do a lot of things that creates a lot of jobs as well. And so Ghana can do that. We have a draft policy that I'm aware of. It's since been transmitted to the Ministry of AGRIC and also Minister of Finance. And so in that policy, and we've been urging that it shouldn't just be for oil palm. The risks we are facing, galamsey and all that we are facing in the cocoa subsector, the fact that we are not meeting our production needs, we are not meeting our production expectations, projections, is of concern, because most farmers are selling their crop fields to galamsey people to operate, and then, but these are individuals, these are decisions they take. If they sell the cocoa and they are not making economic gains, it's actually difficult to pin them down to say they shouldn't take rational decisions. And so it's time that a policy really considers how we can have states sponsored plantations that can be of a certain critical acreage, that you can be sure that as a state we have X acreages of cocoa, we have X acreages of oil palm, of coconut and cashew, so on, so that you can estimate yield, and based on the yield you can make economic use of that potential that you have. For example, if you know that you have 30,000 trees of cocoa and this is the bearing capacity, this is the production of pods that they will be, you'll be able to estimate the quantities and use that as a financing arrangement to be able to look at the other factors of the chain. That way you are certain about it. By this stage, as you agree, we are only depending on individual cocoa farms and cocoa farmers. There are decisions that we don't have absolute control. So the same thing, I don't expect oil palm to make that mistake. I think that this policy ought to look at how we can finance some minimum guarantee, critical acreage of plantations that are owned by government as a stake. And then we can support the individuals. If we do this, then it means that all the threats that we see around can be handled in a way, because you have a minimum guaranteed production capacity. And so we look forward to operationalizing that policy for oil palm. We think that if we can do it effectively, oil palm alone, and as you say, the finance minister projected 500 jobs that can be created. It can be more than that. I mean, if we can really invest in this space in the ways that we are talking about, then there's that potential that along the chain, whether it is those preparing the fields, whether it is those planting and harvesting, those processing the oil for food, processing the chaff, feeding animals, processing the oil further into cooking oil, into petroleum for our automobiles, into export, into several commodities can emerge from it. Even the waste, the backward processing of the waste into usable forms. These are all channels of the chain that can create jobs. And so, Kweku, the critical thing is, how do we set this policy, think of it in an ambitious way, be ready to match it with financing that can create that critical acreages and that critical investment in the value chain of oil palm, in the value chain of coconut, in the value chain of cocoa. If we can get this right, then I believe that we will be on the path to sustainability and increasing of job availability for the youth.